Spiritus Domini, replevit orbem terrarum, Alleluia. Et quod continet omnia scientiam habet vocis, Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. Exultat Deus et dissipentur inimicius, et fugiam gloriam Deum apacius. Gloria Patri et Filium et Spiritui Sancto, sicut erat in principio et nunc et semper, et in saecula saeculorum. Amen. Spiritus Domini, replevit orbem terrarum, Alleluia. Et quod continet omnia scientiam habet vocis, Alleluia, Alleluia, Alleluia. The Spirit of the Lord has filled the whole earth. If we believe, specifically as Christians, that we have a God who is relationship, and that relationship is love, that cannot but have an impact on all that we do and all that we say, and also on, therefore, the form of life that exudes from us. There is a Christian culture. It was interesting to hear recently how people being taken in mercifully as refugees in Italy were being well treated, but then were beginning very quickly to take things for granted and to complain if things weren't perhaps as they should be. It is interesting to see how one culture impacts on another. It is interesting to see how the bottom line is different from one religion to another, and from the culture that that religion produces to another. We know that this agape, this love, was something that stood out in the early times. See how these Christians love one another, was what was said about them. And when one goes to a good monastery, one does find that. I cannot but remember going back on the minibus from Aberforth Abbey when I was 17, having been received into the Catholic Church there on Holy Saturday night in the evening, how that thought came to me on Easter morning, or rather Monday, leaving all to go back to Cardiff. There was a tear in my eye as I looked back on the kind novice master and the brethren who were waving me goodbye in their lovely habit from the door of the cloister, and I thought to myself, there is love here. That is a very powerful vocation's drive, far better than much artificialdom. Love radiates, and when that love is coming from the altar, when that love is coming from quiet meditation, as was the case there, for they would spend good long moments with their hoods up in meditation in the early hours between Matins and Lords, then one sees and feels something of the ignition of the Spirit of our God. The Spirit of the Lord has filled the whole world. And that too has been observed over the Christian centuries, that this charity has gently had a power. People were struck by the difference. The points of reference weren't the same. And so too, in all our liturgical ambit, it must always be an expression of that. One cannot bypass it in the interests of something higher, such as perfect liturgy. It doesn't quite work like that. Perfect liturgy is the expression of perfect love, and one cannot demolish the other. This love also is energetic, and I would like to just conclude with something that moved me very deeply in the mid-80s in France. It was a time of explosion of the power of the Spirit in that country. Despite the great loss of faith and practice, there were great corners of renewal and communities being born out of it. And I spent the summer of 1986 with the Beatitudes. It was at that time the old name of the Lion of Judah, and I was struck by the freshness of what was very old, and one saw the same power that had been at work in the Acts of the Apostles, and that had been at work in the saints, such as the Créevars, for they would hold great events at Ars. And one saw the same power under new modalities coming through. The beauty of the liturgy was striking, and it was based partly on Byzantine ritual, vivified and made beautifully strong with the young voices and the beauty of their movements. But in there was breaking through the genuine power of the Spirit, for combined with that would be the use and the genuine use of authentic gifts. And yet it was orthodox and faithful, based on adoration of the Blessed Sacrament, based actually on penance and fasting, based on the use of the Rosary, but again brought to life with great music and beauty and dignity, all in an ambience of great charity. But the interesting point was the way in which the powerful and authentic gifts of the Spirit were combined with the best of the old. In actually the Abbey Blanche, in that situation, which was another monastery, Cistercian monastery actually, with a good history and a powerful architectural structure and a great acoustic, which carried the chant polyphonic, in that case on high. And this was striking, for certain things cannot be fabricated. Words of knowledge, healing and so on are either authentic or not, and one stands back when one sees that the Holy Spirit is given space to take over and breaks through. That is power. And I remember one evening going into the room where I was sleeping and writing these words, for I was struck by the beauty of what is ever old and ever new. It was the gifts in the context of high beauty, the laying on of hands after the word of knowledge. There is a force and beauty in this place that is not of this world. There is a tongue unknown of him that sings, that beareth grace and order in this orchestrated song that none on earth e'er wrote. There is a light that sees the unseen regions of the heart, and, known within by means yet unknown quite, sends forth a beam that makes the touched soul start. For there is more in this place than mere men, and though man be full man, a thing divine hath travelled through this perfume. For in them, when man made most, he made not this. 'Tis thine to know what thou dost know alone, to be where thou didst say thou'dst be with two or three. They were filled with the Holy Spirit and spoke the marvels of God.